Alright, today we're going to introduce you to something called the percent proportion. If you know how to solve a proportion, then the percent proportion is one of the easiest things we can do. So let's look at the proportion right now. Let's start on the right hand side. First you'll see 100. This 100 is the same everywhere. It doesn't change. Every problem we work, it's going to be right there. Right above it, you're going to find the percent. Now, this isn't the percent with a percent sign, it's just the number, no percent sign with it. Over on the left-hand side of a proportion, it's going to be a ratio. It'll usually be the part to the whole, and sometimes the part could be like a tax or a discount. The whole might be a price, like an original price, or how much it's out of. So as we go through the next few problems, I think it'll make sense to you, and it's really kind of easy. Not hard to do at all. Okay, so our first number problem is what number is 35% of 500? Well, let me show you how I do these problems. First thing I do is I write that 100 down because I know that 100 is going right there. It doesn't change. Next thing I look for is what number is 35% of 500? Well, the percent goes right above the 100, so what is it? 35. And this is 35 out of 100 because percent means how many out of 100. Now let's look for our next spot. This is usually the next spot I fill in right down here. It's the total or how much it's out of. Well, in this case, it's out of 500. So I'm going to put that right there. And really, here's what we're trying to figure out. What number is 35% of 500? So x is what number? Now we remember from proportions that cross products are equal. So 100x equals, I don't know what 35 times 500 is. I'm going to tell you what, if you talk to your teacher, they might let you cheat and use a calculator, just because these numbers are going to get a little weird. So when I get that, I get 17,500. And then I'm going to divide by 100. So as I divide by 100, I get x equals 175. So what this tells me is that 175 is 35% of 500. Okay, let's try another one. This one's a little bit different, so we've got to pay close attention to it, but we're going to work it the same way. First thing I do is put my 100. Second thing I do is look for a percent. Well, this problem says what percent is 12 of 400? I don't see a percent sign anywhere, but I do see this, what percent. It's what we're trying to figure out, so I'm going to put an X there. On the other side, now I have to figure out what percent is 12 of 40. So 40 is how much it's out of, or the total amount. 12 is the part. So I'm going to do my cross products like normal. I'm going to do 40x equals 1200. And then I'm going to divide by 40, divide by 40. And when I do that, well, let's see what I get. Yes, I'm going to the calculator. 1200 divided by 40 equals 30. So x equals 30. So what that tells us, it's not just 30, but x represents 30%. Okay, so our answer is really 30% because it says what percent is 12 of 40? 30% is 12 of 40. In other words, if you answered 12 out of 40 questions on the test correctly, yeah, you get a whole 30%. That's not very good. Let's try the next one. Okay, now this is a word problem, and I think word problems are actually easier to do with this. So, Kelsey took a survey at lunch. She found that 18 out of 40 people brought their lunch. What percent of the students brought their lunch? Okay, so once again, I put my 100 down because I know that's right. That doesn't change. The second thing I look for is percent. Well, in this case, it says what percent? In other words, we don't know the percent. Over here, it says she found 18 out of 40 people brought their lunch. So there's 40 people total, and 18 of them brought their lunch. Once again, we're going to do cross products. So 40x equals 1800. Now, I don't know what this is. It's a one-step equation. I know we need to divide by 40 on both sides. We're going to divide by 40, both sides. X equals, and I am going to my calculator, 1800 divided by 40 is 45. So if it's asking what percent, I need to make sure I label that as 45%. And that answer makes sense because if it had been 20 out of 40, that would have been 50%. So real close on that one. I think this is the last one we're going to do. It's a little different than the other one, so we have to pay close attention on this one. This is one of our good trick questions. So pay attention to it and you should get all your questions right. Alright, Melanie took a quiz. She knew she answered 17 questions correctly. If she earned a 68% on the test, one she didn't do too well, how many questions were on the test? How many questions were on the test? So once again, I set it up this way. I know this is 100. That doesn't change. My percent is 68. Not bad, I can figure that out. But what goes on this side? Well, it said she answered 17 questions correctly, and a lot of times people will just automatically put that 17 down here, but that's not what it is. If she answered 17 correctly, that means there had to be some she answered incorrectly. And if we read the question, it says how many questions were on the test, or how many questions total were on the test. We know she had 17 right out of how many? We don't know that. So we're going to get 68x equals 1700. Now I am not sure about this math, so when we divide by 68 because it's a one-step equation, we get x equals 1700 divided by 68 equals, there were 25 questions on the test. And that's how I'd answer. I'd write it out. There are 25 questions on the test. So these problems are pretty easy. You just have to remember, you always put the 100 on the lower right. You always put the percent right above it. On the left-hand side, you're looking for the part or the little amount out of the whole amount, or how much it's out of. So not too hard to do, pretty easy, kind of fun.